this is Anglin, neo-Nazi, and a hardcore bastard. I'm not only a racist, I also violate copyright laws constantly, and I feel no remorse. I once killed a man because I didn't like the way he was petting his dog. My political beliefs are we should enslave the blacks again, and we should do a new Holocaust because 6 million just isn't enough.
I am now master of this dojo, and you will obey my every command, or else.
Okay, he's into Gamergate. He's clever. I like his videos. He attacks feminists and are very funny. So I watch his channel. I saw one he did on Rotherham, this Pakistani child rape and trafficking scandal, where he put exclusive blame for this entire scandal on the British people and political correctness. Obviously, political correctness is a real problem, and I would pretty much agree entirely with his analysis of how that whole thing played out. But the fact is that not a single girl would have been raped if it wasn't for Pakistanis being in Britain. So I is effectively endorsing child rape. Because even if the police and the council would have been aggressively trying to prevent this Pakistani grooming behavior, they couldn't have stopped all of it. And claiming that if a Muslim immigrant commits a crime in a white country, it is the fault of the authorities of the white country because they failed to stop it strikes me as somewhat nuts. Did it? And it was shocking to me, the way he responded to it. It was completely emotional and irate. He literally took every single position that the SJWs take on race. He calls me a monster and a horrible person, and the whole thing is incredibly weird, in my opinion, coming from somebody who apparently views himself as some type of reactionary to the modern social paradigm. I hadn't expected the guy to be exactly a racist in the sense that a lot of other people in the reactionary movements are, but I did not expect him to be a hardcore Marxist, which is what we see in his video. Given that I in fact have 3 brain cells that I not only rub together but also enjoy stroking. Okay, now it's an obvious fact that not every single Muslim is a child rapist. It's also a fact that every single Muslim who follows the Quran does believe that it is okay to rape children. Muhammad is the founder of the religion and viewed by the God Allah as the perfect man. Muhammad married a girl named Aisha when she was 5. He deflowered her, that's sexual penetration, when she was 9. And he used to masturbate in the bathtub with her when she was 6. So though all Muslims do not engage in this behavior, all Muslims do necessarily approve of this behavior, which is an important. It was Muslims. And child rape is an institution of the Muslim community. They obviously do this in their own countries. Everyone is aware of this. The feminists are constantly complaining about it and saying we need to invade these countries, or the UN needs to send education teams in to teach them to stop doing it. It's a part of their culture and hence a part of their genetic behavior pattern. Claiming that once they enter into a white country, it is then the authorities of that white country's responsibility to keep them from doing something that they've done for thousands of years in their own countries is insane. On top of this, even if the authorities in Britain had actively pursued these Pakistani gangs, there still would have been children being raped because they couldn't stop it all. Maybe they would have stopped 85% of it. That's still 15% of these girls that would have been raped simply because you had Pakistanis in the country. So your position is not that we need to stop Pakistani child rape, because to stop Pakistani child rape, we would have to get rid of all these Pakistanis. Your position is that we need to reduce it by having the authorities deal with it. So thereby you implicitly support Pakistani child rape. I don't know if you didn't understand what I was saying. I don't think it's really that complicated. Or if you just pretended not to understand it because... So what he's done here is Googled a case where children were allegedly trafficked by white people. He was not aware of this before, or he would have been aware of the fact that this was done by Albanian Muslims and not white people. But instead, he goes ahead and blames and defames the Serbian people for the behavior of Albanians who have invaded and occupied their country with the help of NATO. That's a long story I won't go into all the details of here, but Albanians are internationally known for being involved in sex trafficking. Why he is not aware of that, I don't know. So this is the point at which he goes from just basic social justice gibberish into factual inaccuracies. Well, firstly, I've never said that white people cannot do bad things. The argument is, do they do it on a systemic level, particularly with the issue of raping and trafficking little girls? And the answer to that is obviously no. So what you've done here is, after accusing the Serbians of sex trafficking, which was done by Albanians occupying Serbia, you have gone on to cite the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia as some sort of factually accurate record of history. This was a criminal tribunal set up after the war, after NATO had gone in to support Albanian terrorists in a war against the Serbs. Generally, these type of tribunals tend to be a little bit biased, using Serbia of using rape as a weapon of war during the Yugoslav wars because of the claims of the International War Crimes Tribunal that was formed after NATO destroyed their country. Maybe it did happen, probably not. This is called a atrocity lie. It's a pretty normal thing that happens when you want to demonize an enemy. But even if it did happen, using rape as a weapon of war is not the same thing as, in peacetime, taking little girls and grooming them to be prostitutes. They're completely separate concepts. Okay, so this is the race does not exist argument, which is a pillar of the social justice movement. This idea that we're born as blank slates and that somehow the obvious genetic differences that you can see when you look at people of different races do not apply in any way to their psychological makeup. And so their behavior can just be molded by society. Now, this is a complicated issue. I've written about it in detail in the written response that I gave to Sargon's video, which again I encourage everybody to go look at. Basically, the idea originated with a Jewish sociologist named Franz Boas, who came up with the idea that culture was somehow just magically appeared and that all humans were somehow exactly the same, even though they look completely different. They have completely different IQs, they have completely different testosterone levels. Their culture is not a result of the hundreds of thousands of years of variant evolution, but just appeared magically somehow. And then it can just be changed, which there's no scientific evidence to support this theory. It's just thrown out there in the social sciences, which are not actually real sciences by any traditional definition of science. But this line of reasoning has been employed in order to defend the position that it's a good idea to bring millions of non-whites into our countries and that somehow they will just adapt. It hasn't happened yet. There's no indicator that it is beginning to happen or will ever happen. In fact, it seems like the opposite happens. If you look at France, the generations of Muslims get worse by the generation and more separate from the mainstream culture. And this is obviously, if you were not brainwashed, it would be so obvious that this is a biological issue, that the behavior is hardwired. There's different types of dogs. They all have the same ancestor, which is an extinct gray wolf. And no one is saying that all dogs are the same or that you could integrate all dogs. No one believes that. You don't hear that argument presented. And it's the same thing as this argument Sargon is presenting, that culture is somehow just a magical thing that appears and has nothing to do with your biology. Washed. A simple comparison between the level of civilization that the British developed and the level of civilization that Pakistanis developed proves this point beyond any shadow of a doubt. And as far as you not being a left-wing progressive, I don't know. I mean, you have some funny stuff to say about feminists, but I believe that has something to do with personal issues you have with women, as clearly the rest of your positions are exactly in line with liberal progressivism. The bottom line is these crimes were committed by Pakistanis, and they would not have been committed if these Pakistanis were not in Britain. There's no way to weasel out of this. This is the bottom line fact of the matter to our society. So, I mean, I don't take pride in the fact that I've put him in this position where he either has to go hardcore Marxist and push the full SJW line, which I guess he's basically already done anyway, or admit to being wrong. And due to his particular style, it's going to be very difficult for him to admit that he was entirely wrong about all of this. I guess that's why he hasn't done a retraction after accusing the Serbs of sex trafficking, which again did bother me because of the personal involvement I've had with Serbia and Serbians. Obviously, his intention was to just let this drop, which is why he didn't bother responding to my second article. He has no real response because he didn't understand any of these issues that I was bringing up. He just went ahead and assumed that I represented some type of cartoonish image that he has in his mind of neo-Nazis. So the whole situation is unfortunate, and I'm sorry it played out like this, but these issues needed addressed, and he brought this on himself. So, you know, it is what it is. So now I've responded, it's over. I don't expect him to respond to this video because there's not really anything he can say. I hope that at some point he comes around and realizes how wrong he is in supporting these Marxist positions, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyway, wrapping up here, thanks for listening, and check out the site. Peace.